Today we're going to be remaking Adam Ragusea's famous decade-long pizza. And we're going to be making a second one as well. So, well, stick around to the end to see whether or not it turns out better. If you do happen to enjoy this video, guys, then be sure to give it a like and a share, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you don't miss out on any future content. Now, let's get started. Now for the dough. Today we're going to be using a flour that is similar to what Adam is using. This one is Italian flour, specifically for more Neapolitan pizza. We're also going to be using some Spanish dry yeast. Is for pizza, it'll be fine. We're going to be using a little bit of sugar, salt, and of course some good quality Spanish extra virgin olive oil.
All you need is a bowl, ideally a big bowl with a wide base.
First, we have a big bowl with a wide base. These bowls are actually quite good to use because, you know, they don't roll around on you. And if you want a little more security, put a kitchen cloth underneath. We're going to put the scale on this.
These days I start by putting in all my water, about 2.5 cups of warm water.
All right, about 600 mil. Ooh, spot on too.
Then some sugar, a tablespoon.
1 tablespoon. That's a decent amount of sugar.
Some people might say that's a lot.
And now for the yeast.
In goes a teaspoon of active dry yeast. Mix that up.
We're going to mix this up and, well, let the little yeast be fruitful and multiply, like Adam says.
Here's my favorite part. I am not speeding up this footage. This is real time.
So now this is starting to bloom, like in Adam's video.
Gonna put in some olive oil. Maybe that's 2 tablespoons or something.
We're gonna add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in here as well, like Adam. About that.
Then in goes a tablespoon of salt.
1 tablespoon salt. It is a lot of salt. Now, if you were to add a lot more salt to this, there is a possibility that it could start to hinder the actual growth of the yeast. But just adding a little bit, it should be fine. And this also adds a lot of flavor to the dough.
I use bread flour, which has a higher protein content than all-purpose flour.
Now, if you cannot find any pizza flour, low flour, or any strong flour, then it's okay to use all-purpose flour at home. It's not ideal, but if that's all you have, is how it is.
I start with 5 cups by volume. Sure, that's not an accurate way of measuring flour, but this is just a starting point.
Now for this, we're going to zero the scale, and we're going to be adding about 600 grams. And 600. Voila. 600 grams.
I usually just bring that together with a spatula or something, then get my hand in there and knead.
Now you can use a silicone spatula to mix it, a wooden spoon, or you can use your hands. I'm going to use a glove because I don't want to get my hands that dirty.
When it gets so sticky that I can't really work with it, I'll sprinkle on a little bit more flour. As little as possible, though. I really prefer wetter doughs these days.
So double checking Adam's recipe with what he has in the video compared to the description. He put 70 milliliters less in the description than he has in the video. Right now, 600 ml water, 600 ml flour, plus adding the oil and everything else to this, you get a consistency that is extremely wet. So we're gonna add a little more flour. Well, Adam did say that he likes a wet dough. This is a wet dough.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
After adding another 200 grams of flour, we have it to what it seems to be somewhat close to the consistency of how Adam has it in his video. But still, this one is a little on the wet side.
We've got 4 containers here, big enough for the dough balls to double in size.
Now we're going to do the same, dividing them up into about 4 equal-sized pieces, a little bit of olive oil in each.
We tear the ball in half, then heft each ball for weight. If one feels heavier, transfer some dough to the other ball.
Okay, break it in half and then half again.
Then what I like to do is use the ball like a paintbrush to oil the inside of the bowls. In the process, the balls themselves get good and covered in oil too.
Now we finally have them in the containers. The consistency is still not exactly how Adam has it. His consistency looks a little more like little clay balls that he has, or like putty. And this is actually a lot wetter still. And at the end, we used in total over 970 grams instead of 600 grams like in the video. So we used almost the entire kilo for the amount of water that he said in the video, which was about 600 grams in the video, and then in the description it's less. Depending on what type of flour you're going to be using, just double check, but the measurements are a little off. A little cloth. See you in 2 hours. After about 2 hours, you can tell the difference, no, with how much the dough has actually risen.
You want to get your oven as hot as it goes, though. For me, that's 550 Fahrenheit on the convection roast setting.
Just like Adam, we have preheated our oven for about an hour, and I'm not using a steel plate today. I'm actually using a stone. Supposedly this is volcanic rock. It's from Mount Etna. So we'll see how it works.
A sauce. The New York style pizza that I'm talking about here is a street food. It's cheap. It's generally made with canned sauce products.
Now as for the tomato sauce, I'm gonna make 2 pizzas. We're gonna make one with more normal ingredients, so like store-bought cheese and puree tomato sauce that you can get at this grocery store. And then we're gonna make a better one.
Kitchen-ready crushed tomatoes. Really good.
Tomato sauce.
I do put in a pinch of sugar, some dried oregano, and a lot of olive oil.
Pinch of sugar, dried oregano, and olive oil. Now we're just gonna give it a good mix, like he's doing. And there we go. We have our tomato sauce all ready for the pizza.
Here is my pizza peel. You need something big and flat to shimmy the pizza out onto the steel.
Now, just like Adam, we're going to take our pizza peel. Haven't used it before, as you can tell. It's all nice and shiny, all brand new.
You need a granular matter to keep it from sticking, and I'm back to using cornmeal.
We're gonna be laying a little bit of polenta, not cornmeal, on top. I had to substitute, I couldn't get cornmeal, only polenta. Both come from corn, they're just milled differently, basically.
What I do is put a plate on there and then some flour on the plate.
We're gonna put a plate on top of that, and then we're going to add what little flour we have left on the plate.
I take it out while deflating it as little as possible and then get it coated in flour.
His dough is a little less wet or hydrated than this one, because this one is like extremely hydrated.
And yeah, I know how to toss pizzas in the air. I still prefer to just do the gravity stretch method. A characteristic of New York style pizza is it's wide.
More or less. You see these little bubbles? This is good. We have air pockets.
Sauce goes on, smoothing it out with the back of a spoon.
Put on a little bit of our sauce. Almost forgot the Parmigiano. We're gonna put a little bit on. Now we're ready.
Very quickly, before this dough bonds to the wood, bring it over to the oven, a little shimmy just to make sure it's gonna release, and then shimmy it out onto the steel.
I don't know if you could hear that sizzle, but that is very hot. Now we wait.
A pizza this thin in an oven this hot cooks really fast, 6 or 7 minutes. Rather than taking the pizza out with the peel, I usually grab it with tongs and pull it straight out onto a cooling rack.
Ah, yeah, it's sticking a little bit to the stone, but that's beautiful. The pizza turned out beautifully, except for me messing up a little bit. As soon as I put it onto the stone, it stuck like a you-know-what, and I couldn't pull it back. Beautiful color. So we're gonna leave this here. We're gonna let that cool down, and we're gonna work on the other one. Now for pizza number 2, while the first one's cooling down, we're gonna be using some San Marzano tomatoes. These are authentic, these are from Italy, and this is just a little bit better than the store-bought tomato sauce that we were using. Now I'll show you a little trick that we do use in the kitchen. And I don't know if the cable will barely reach. You have to be very careful doing it like this. Yeah, but in the kitchen, normally when you have a number 10 can, and it's easy to clean up in a professional kitchen, it doesn't really matter. Voila, there we go. Just blend it a little bit and we're done. And as for the cheese, we are going to be using some mozzarella di bufala for the second one, just to give a little bit of a comparison on taste and flavor. Since these have a lot of liquid, we want to dry these off. If you're going to be using them for pizza or anything like this, it is a good idea to cut them in half, maybe cut them a little more, just to remove the excess milk from this. Time for the polenta again. Put a little on top. Trying to make it round, voila. Now, with the San Marzano tomato sauce, I'm not gonna add anything else to this. In a lot of pizzerias, they add literally just canned tomato sauce. A lot of people will say that you don't want to blend the tomatoes because if you blend the seeds, it can add like a bitterness to them. But more than likely, you're not really going to notice a difference, especially with all the other flavors going on, unless you are a pizza connoisseur. I'm gonna add a little bit of the Parmigiano Reggiano. And now for the mozzarella. I'm just going to break this up and add this in little pieces because, again, this is a wet type of cheese, and of course it's going to add a little bit of moisture to this. And you know what? We're gonna add a little bit of dry mozzarella as well, just to help keep it all together. There we go. Now to finish off the second pizza, we're just going to add a little bit of fresh basil. Okie dokie. Well, we made ourselves a little pizza margherita. Now for the moment of truth, we're going to test both of them. Overall, you can see quite a big difference between these two pizzas. And obviously I messed up a little here because it stuck to the stone like you know what. But in any case, it's still pretty good. Well, it looks a little more, it has more of the shape of the same pizza that Adam made in his video, so it's okay. Now the first pizza that we did, the bottom didn't get as crispy as we wanted. Then again, it's also sat for about 10 minutes, so it has become a little soggy, but it didn't get a lot of color on the bottom. The second one that we did, which is a little wetter, did get more color on the bottom, which is nice because this is what you want. It adds more flavor, and this is fresh out of the oven, so it's actually quite hot. The only difference between these two pizzas is the tomato sauce and the cheese. That's it. It's basically Adam's recipe, but just with a few other ingredients, or different ingredients. Now taste test time for Adam's pizza, so let's see. Adam's pizza, since I'm not actually tasting the pizza that Adam made and we're following his recipe as closely as possible, it's okay. Yeah, for a home pizza, it's actually pretty good. The only criticism that I have, besides the oregano being a little overpowering and everything, is the dough, because the ratio of the dough and the measurements was completely off to what he had listed in the description compared to what was in the video. And even in the video, we followed it to the T. And in the end, we had a dough that was extremely wetter than what he ended up with in the video. So if you are going to be making this recipe at home, don't use as much water. Dial it down. Put in only about 400 milliliters if you're going to be putting in 600 grams of flour. And then try to add a little more if you need it. Now for the second pizza, this was me just trying to use a few other ingredients that are higher quality just to get a different result with using the same dough. So it's still Adam's dough, but we use San Marzano tomatoes instead of the general store-bought tomato sauce. And we also use fresh mozzarella di bufala or buffalo mozzarella instead of just using the dry, the low moisture stuff. Just keep this in mind though, if you're going to be using a cheese that has a higher moisture content, try to extract the moisture and don't put as much on. And you also don't want to put a lot of sauce on. Let's try this. This is actually really good. The only thing, besides the dough not being so thick, that can make this better is fixing the dough recipe, because it is off. It's way off. The other thing is that this had a little more dough than this pizza, so it's a little thicker, and I didn't stretch it out far enough, so it's a little too thick, and I don't like thick crusted pizza. There's a reason why it's highly important to have exact measurements for when making either dough or making any like pastries or bread or anything like this, because some variations, if you're off by a few grams here and there, it may not matter. But when you're off by like 200 or 300 grams with the recipe and you don't have the right consistency, like we saw earlier, you can't get the same result all the time. And that's probably why it's taken so many years, like over a decade, to get to say this point. So guys, hopefully you have enjoyed this recipe. Let me know your thoughts down below, and let me know if you have remade Adam Ragusea's pizza number 1 or 2. Hopefully you did enjoy this recipe. It's taken me all day to do it, so I hope you appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you don't miss out on any future content. Until next time, take care, and be sure to check out this video coming up here. Bye.